Guys, I'm here with the handsome Dave Rubin.
Oh, please.
Welcome to Australia, mate.
It's a lot of hairspray, you know what I'm saying?
I can join you there. Thanks for joining us, mate.
Yeah, my pleasure. This was a serious operation to confirm this because we're in the midst of a crazy, truly the craziest day of the tour is happening right now with this matinee show in Sydney. We started in Canberra this morning, long drive. We got a couple other events today, but I'm glad we carved out a little time.
I'm so glad we're in the Sydney Opera House. We're going to have, is this the final talk of the tour?
This is my final show with Jordan for now.
Yeah.
He's extending, he's leaving for New Zealand in a couple of days, and then he'll be back for about 5 more shows in Australia, but I've got some family stuff and got to head home, you know. And we've done about 130 shows together in about 20 countries, and it's been incredible, and we've been doing this since last January, so for 13 months, and it's just been awesome, and I'm visiting all these places that I've never been to, and I'm performing in places like the Sydney Opera House that I never thought I would perform in, and we're in a very impressive green room right now.
Yeah, we can't wait to hear you sing tonight, mate.
Yeah. But it ain't pretty.
You've been around the world. I want to hear, what are the common themes you're hearing? Because, you know, we've got political correctness, we've got a lot of fear actually happening on social media and all that. So tell us what you're seeing.
I think the main fear is that people that live in free societies, if you live in Australia, you are in a free society. If you live in the United States, you basically live in the freest society in the history of the world. If you live in any Western country, within reason, you are free. Now, that doesn't mean it's perfect. That doesn't mean that there aren't problems that have to be solved. But you basically are free to do and say what you think. Now, in the United States, we have a particularly good, for now, although I'm worried about it, for now, an ability to say what we want. We have extra protections because of the Bill of Rights and the First Amendment, obviously. Now, you guys have a better version of speech here than, say, they do in the UK, which has other laws that are regulating speech. But if you basically live in Western countries, you're basically free. What I'm noticing, no matter where we go, is that good people, I mean good people, I've met thousands and thousands of people, and we've performed in front of hundreds of thousands of people at this point. Good people who maybe are a little libertarian or believe in some limited government or want low taxes or states' rights. I mean, basic liberty-related stuff, let's say, are afraid to say what they think. I'm not talking about people that are genuinely racists or genuinely hate gay people or anything like that. I'm talking about people with pretty moderate positions are afraid to say what they think. So it's been really interesting for me because to realize that someone in Sydney is thinking the same thing as the guy who I met in Stockholm, which is thinking the same thing as the girl I met in Toronto, who's thinking the same thing as, you know, the college kid that I met in San Diego. That tells you there's something worldwide happening right now, and it's obviously partly because of the internet and the way that we're all getting information, and it's as easy for you to watch, say, a video that I did or that Jordan did or anyone else. It's as easy for you here in Sydney as it is across the world. So there's something amazing happening, but it's sort of wrapped right now in a lot of fear, which is crazy.
There's a lot of fear with what we type and what we talk about, particularly with genders, with equality and equality outcome, equality, all that stuff. What's driving this thing, in your opinion?
I mean, what's driving it basically is that this postmodern leftism that is wrapped up in America, you know, it's progressivism, and it's sort of spread now all over the world. It's an authoritarian movement. So basically the lines are drawn these days. You know, in the old days it was sort of your left or your right or you're conservative or you're liberal. But really right now it's either you're authoritarian, meaning you want state power, you think that the state has the capacity and the knowledge and the wisdom to do the right thing to build a great society, or you believe in a more libertarian version of this, which is that you believe it's on the individual to figure it out. Now, both of them are not perfect because I believe there is a good government that could exist that could do the right thing for its people, but that's not what we're seeing really. What we're seeing is a constant usurping of power, taking power away from the individual and giving it to government. So I absolutely fall on the libertarian side of that, which is that any solution that can be done by you figuring out what is right for you, by me figuring out what's right for me, and even if we're next door neighbors, we may believe incredibly different things, 180 different things, as long as we don't do it on each other's property or don't infringe on each other's rights, that's actually the beauty of living in a free society. I mean, go to North Korea, they don't have those freedoms, right?
Sure.
So where do you have those freedoms? You have those freedoms in Western societies. So everything we should be doing should be to protect the rights of the individual. I don't care who you sleep with, I don't care what you smoke, I don't care what God you believe in. as long as you don't use those beliefs to infringe on my rights. And that's the negotiation, because you're going to do some stuff I don't like, I'm going to do some stuff you don't like. But if we actually believe in freedom and not just talk about freedom, then that's what we should be aiming for, as opposed to, oh, if only the government could give us this.
Yeah.
If only we could take some more from some people and give it to others. And if only we could have all these free things, which of course are not free. Nothing's free.
Takes away the responsibility. Where's the responsibility?
Well, I mean, this is very consistent with Jordan's message, which is that at the cornerstone of Western society is the individual. And what is your purpose in life? It's to be on an adventure, whatever your adventure is, whatever my adventure is. And the more that you placate people by giving them things, whatever that is. And I'm not saying you shouldn't help people, but it's up to you to help people. And maybe it's a separate argument altogether. Maybe the state should have some level of Social Security or some level of protections for the most needy. I'm not against that per se.
Of course, yeah.
But the point is that they're trying to trick everyone into thinking the government will give you free this, free that, free healthcare, free education, free job, or we'll give you money if you're unwilling to work, as it said in the original
someone that
version.
hurts my feelings.
Yeah.
And it's like, my God, like what I love about your show is that you're able to interview and talk about things that you don't necessarily agree with the other person about.
Sure.
What are some of your rules to be able to discuss things that you might have conflicts with?
Yeah, well, I never go into an interview with an intention per se, other than I'm trying to find out what the person thinks. I mean, really, and I can tell you're very similar. Like I can you can just see it in somebody. Like you're here to hear my ideas, and maybe we agree and maybe we don't, but that's sort of secondary to just finding out what I think. And I'm a big believer that if you let someone talk long enough, if they don't know what they're saying, it will become obvious.
I love it.
It really will. You can watch, sometimes I can see it, they're wrapping the noose around their neck because they don't really know what they're saying. I've had this a couple times where I've had people on where you just see them sort of wading into a territory where it's like, you don't really know what you're saying, but what would be the purpose of me beating them down? Well, you don't know what you're doing, and blah, blah, blah. It's like, I'm not really interested in doing that show. There's plenty of other shows that do that.
Yeah.
What I'm interested in finding out is what people think and why they think it. What I've found consistently is that, at least as it stands now, and this is worldwide because I've had several Aussies on the show too, from Andrew Bogut and Rita Panahi and I think a couple others. Oh, Claire Lehman, of course, from Quillette, is that the center right, so basically people that are centrist, that are sort of conservative, maybe a little libertarian, even some of the Trump people, they are very willing to have a conversation without attacking you, without impugning your motives, and without implying this or that about you, without trying to destroy you. There's a richness and an ability to have a conversation there. I can sit with Ben Shapiro for hours and discuss our differences on gay marriage or abortion, and we can do it respectfully and walk away and be fine. It's becoming, I don't want to say nobody, but the sliver of people that remain on the left that are willing to have honest conversation without attacking people and without impugning your motives and all those things, it's just whittling and whittling away into almost nothing. And again, I'm not saying that there are none of them, but it's very hard to find them. And I would say that my good liberal friends, when people talk about the intellectual dark web, most of these guys are lefty, I think at this point I would say they're ex-lefties, but it's not for me to say what they are. But they're good old-fashioned liberals. But I don't know that they can get invited to any lefty or progressive or democratic event. You know where we all get invited? It's by those scary right-wing conservatives and libertarians. So there's a real sea change of things happening right now. And I'm happy to talk to anybody that's respectful and decent, really.
Yeah, it's awesome. Do you know, with the idea of offence at the moment, it's people in this society, like online particularly, people generally so skinless. So if you disagree with something, they take it as disrespect and they attack you and they beat you with their tribe or with their gender club or with whatever it is.
Yeah.
Let's give some tips here. I want to hear your advice here. What's some methods to be able to deal with someone who's trying to attack you if you disagree with them?
Well, it's tough, right? This is a hard question. I get asked this at almost every Q&A that I do. This is hard because everyone, especially young people, are dealing with this in an increasingly hysterical way, that if you take any position that's outside of progressive orthodoxy. You take a position, I'm for lower taxes than you. That means you're racist. And you go, well, wait a minute, I'm not racist. What does that have to do with anything? Well, if you're for lower taxes, that means you don't like poor people. And if you don't like poor people, that means you don't like black people.
That's the train of thought.
Right, so they extrapolate this crazy thing. And then if you say to them, well, actually, at least in the United States, there are more poor white people than black people. Well, they don't care about information and all that. That's also why they want to deplatform people all the time, because they don't want to get into the facts of these ideas. It's why Shapiro's line about facts don't care about your feelings has caught on with people. But there are a couple techniques you can use. I would say it's very hard to get them to join you or to listen to you if you're just drubbing them with facts. It's very hard to do. What you can do is you can turn some of this on them. So one thing that I found is at least somewhat effective when I go to colleges, before I do anything, I'll say, you know, does anyone in this room have it worse than their grandparents?
Good question.
And if you live in the West, especially if you live in the United States, but I suspect it's very, very similar here, and in most Western countries, you have it way better than your grandparents. In many cases, your grandparents were immigrants who came with nothing. That's obviously a very consistent thing that's happened in the United States, or certain, maybe your great-grandparents or whatever. But you know, they had to live through war and famine and all sorts of things. It's very rare that if you live in the United States that your grandparents who were alive in, say, the 30s and 40s and 50s had it better than you. And if they did, they were probably oil tycoons or something. And then if they have it better than you, that means that the family lost the money over generations, which the left would love because they don't want to keep accumulated wealth. So if you can say something like that, like really, like think about your grandparents. Like you do it right now. Like think about your grandparents. I'm going to guess you have it better than them.
Yeah, of course.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And I have it better than my grandparents. Both of my grandfathers had to fight in World War II. I haven't had to fight in any wars. That's pretty great, right? Like,
so you're finding a point of agreement?
Well, you're finding a point. You're trying to show them that while they're screaming about the evil patriarchy and how horrible capitalism is, I mean, you could go, because the other thing is you can go through facts. You could say, well, there's less poverty than ever worldwide. There's more green on the earth right now than ever before. You can go through a series of things, but those are just sort of amorphous facts that don't really get into somebody. But if you can say, think about your grandparents.
Yeah, put yourself into, yes.
So if this system, what you're telling me is this system is so evil, it's so tyrannical, it's the patriarchy, all of these things, but
you've got it better.
You've got it better. So that means the arc of justice or goodness or equality, whatever you want to call that, prosperity, it bent, and it bent the right way. Now, it may not be perfect, but the idea that these people have, which is that if only they were in power and had enough state power, that they could make everything perfect, it's childish, actually, and it's an erasure of history, and it's worse than that. It's a removal of what it is to be human. Generations came before you that lived through all sorts of things, and if you are 19 or 20 or 52 and you think you know it all and all those people before you were a bunch of bigot, racist homophobes, most likely you're the bigot, racist homophobe. Yeah. You don't know it. There are things that came before us. I don't have all the answers, but what I do know is I believe in freedom. I believe in the individual's choice to do what is right for them. And as long as you're not doing it to somebody else, as I said before, get to it.
With offence, what causes offence? Is it lying the person who receives it, like who interprets it, or the chicken or the egg?
No, well, it's only on the person who receives it. You know, I've been called all sorts of things. There's videos of me on YouTube with people yelling all sorts of horrible things. I'm alt-right and I'm a Nazi and all this craziness.
Yeah, it's hectic. Yeah.
And guess what? It's not pleasant to hear. Well, at some level, it was kind of funny sometimes because it's like, look, you, what are you guys doing? Like, you're waking up and you think I'm the guy that's really taking down society. Like, come on. But removing the slightly humorous part of it, it's not fun when people say those things. Or if someone was walking by you and made some racial epithet, or went by me and said, oh, you're a fag, or whatever it is. It's like, nobody likes that. Yeah. But it's on you to take offense or not to take offense. And there's a weird thing happening online, which is, if this was the real world, let's say you're walking down the street and a guy across the street starts screaming at you and tell you, whatever they're saying, just awful, the worst stuff you can imagine. Would you walk across the street and start engaging? Sir, that's not true. I'm not that thing that you're saying I am. You would never engage them. You'd just be like, oh, that's a crazy person, and you'd keep walking. But for some reason online, we feel that we have to fight with everybody about it. We have to expose them. We have to do all of these things. And I get it's a little bit of human nature, and it's the safety of a keyboard, right? We're all warriors at a keyboard. Yeah. But I've found that basically, the more that you ignore these people, they thrive on attention. And if you ignore them a little bit more, maybe they'll go away a little bit more, or mute them and block them and then let them, tweet into the void. But it's on you. It's on you. If someone says something offensive, I'm not saying there aren't offensive things. I'm not even saying that there aren't racist things. There are racist things. If you look at a group of black people and you think that they have to be a certain way, or that they all act a certain way or think a certain way, that is racism. By the way, that version of racism is often coming from the left right now, which is, black people must think these things. Yeah. Gay people must think these things. That's actual bigotry.
Yep.
I know plenty of black people. Guess what? You're not going to believe this. They all think different things about things. It's crazy.
I know, isn't it?
Wouldn't you believe that?
They're not meant to do that,
Yeah, no, I know that gay people might think different things about things. So again, that's why if you get everything down to the level of individual, I think it's the best way that a society can function.
My last question for you, because I really appreciate your time, Dave.
Yeah, my pleasure.
You've been traveling with Jordan Peterson for a long time now, and I want to know, has any of your views, even with religion and personal beliefs, morphed a bit because of being around guys like Jordan? I know you've interviewed guys like Sam as well. So.
Yeah, well, I can tell you this. I mean, I've been on the road with Jordan now for 13 months, and it's 120 some odd shows in 20 some odd countries. Well, I will say this for sure. I'm a better person. It sounds corny, but I'm a better person. You cannot be around that message every night. Like, I know what it's like when people are reading the book and come one night and I see the way they interact with him. And Jordan, because I read this and I started treating my wife better, or I got off drugs, or whatever, I was addicted to porn, or whatever it is, that their thing. I've seen people fix themselves. So I've been around that thing, a third of my nights in the last year. That's a lot. And so I think there's been certain things in my life that I've been able to fix. But I would say if he's moved me on anything, it is the value of ancient truths. So this is where, without getting into a whole religious conversation or making it about religion per se, the debate that he and Sam Harris had about whether, facts are enough to drive meaning out of, or rather if there's something else. I would say I've come around to the position that there are other ancient truths that you can find through stories that, as Jordan lays out, are through a religious nature, but just that there's something beyond you. And I think it's a good, humbling way to live, and I'm trying to do it myself.
Dave, thanks so much for your time.
It's been a pleasure, man. Really.
Awesome.
Yeah.